is song how we hear the poetic voice these days more? And if so, any thoughts about why? Is it just new tools? I don't know.
Well, I don't want to. I don't want to make any overarching statements, but definitely song is an embedded part of popular culture. It's inescapable, and it's connected with media. Song is everywhere on every cable show. The soundtrack is often, popular songs or independent songs done by artists. It's streamed. It's listened to in cars, on car rides. It's an inescapable fabric of life from birth until death. They're played at funerals. They're performed at weddings. So yes, song lyrics. For the most, I would argue they are poetry. There are differences, but it is the poetic voice. That said, while songs cover a lot of territory, they in general can't cover the territory that poems can cover.
Yes, and several.
There's many good reasons for that, and the most clear of which is that the word popular. Songs are written to be heard, most often by a popular audience, whether they're in musicals or in media, and as such, they have restraints. Then, restraints on subject matter, or they just have a genre focus that can be in a different direction than a poem can. So that's one key difference. But there are tons of differences technically between songs and poetry, and if you're interested in the quick overview of what some of them are, I'm happy to talk about that, because I love debating this with my students.
Yeah. Well, the one that occurs to me is Yeats' Second Coming, and I think Joni Mitchell put it to song. About 90% of it to a song. And she did a good job. I mean, a hard thing to do and very ambitious. And but when I hear the poem read, I still get a tingling up and down my spine.
Yeah.
And just an edge of something terrible, wonderful, terrible, something. And which the song, which Joni does a good job with, okay, a more romantic feeling, okay, no, somehow, that not quite, it does miss something, that can't be captured.
Yeah, I suppose.
Anyway,
that's
just a
true.
thought.
But we're talking about, rather than setting a poem to music, composing a song as a song and composing a poem as a poem, there are certainly some key differences. The chief of which, that when you're writing songs, you are writing for the stage. I mean, you're writing for the stage. You know that you're writing a performance piece. And when you're writing a poem, with exceptions, because there's an exception to everything, like performance poetry, you're writing for the page. The poem tends to be a standalone performance. The voice you hear is often your own, in your head or read aloud, whereas the song is performed for you by a singer. And, that's a key difference. Poetry is often written in free verse, but those who write formally, it's written in many forms. Songs usually have to conform to musical conventions. And in America, popular music, that convention would be like the 8-bar musical phrase that's repeated. One rising phrase, one falling phrase, melodically. Usually 4 of those per verse, plus you have a chorus. So your lyric line has to be written either after the music or before the music to sort of fit the standard construction of music in that. A couple of other things that I'll mention. I don't want to go on too long. I love this subject, though, and if anybody wants to write me and talk about it more, In poetry, we say the image is paramount. But in a song, you have music, and music conveys emotion, whereas in poetry, the image conveys emotion. So you can relax a little bit. You don't have to. Songs like John Prine, Joni Mitchell are rife with imagery, and it's wonderful. But it's actually the melody that can carry the emotions, or even a counter emotion to what you're singing about. Like Sarah loves songs that are sad but have upbeat melodies. She has whole collections of these things, which creates like kind of counterpoint. But songs use more techniques of repetition, hooks if you're writing for a popular song. But I think more important, as far as the mechanics goes, you have to write for singers. You have to know how to write lines that open so that a singer can interpret it and give room. And usually this means the ends of phrases having words with open vowels, because you're dealing with an instrument. A singer uses the voice as one of the most finicky, but one of the most beautiful instruments ever created. But it is an instrument, and it needs to be catered to. And songwriters do need to either instinctively sense or know how to write lines that can be sung with certain melodies, where you have to consider the vocal range that you're asking them to do, the kind of notes that you're asking them to do. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I guess I'll just close on the fact that songs are fundamentally collaborative. So in the end, either you have to be in yourself a musician and a lyricist, or you need two. And eventually there are going to be musicians and performers, people who sing harmony, choruses. There needs to be an arrangement, whereas, the poem doesn't need that. So these are all things to consider when you're writing songs.
I think songs are a little bit looser, too. They're not quite as concentrated as most poems. Poems have... some people used to ask me in free verse what the difference between how can it be a poem if it doesn't rhyme, and what are the characteristics. And I always talked about what one of my teachers called the pounds per square inch. Right. How much impact you put into the phrasing.
Sure.
I think poems are a little bit more concentrated usually.
Unless you're Leonard Cohen.
Yes, that's true.
That's the thing. There's a poet who puts poetry to music. Yeah, it is, but you're right. They are definitely, they can be distilled, in ways that songs often don't need to be or aren't, right? That's a good point. Finally, I guess songs can make money, but I don't know of any poets who have ever earned a living writing poetry, although I guess there's hope. I think we do it for the pure need to do it, I guess. But that's my spiel, and I'm not teaching anymore. I'm retired. But if anybody wants a class, they can contact me, and I'll tell you all about it.
I thought the comments about songwriting and songs is really interesting, and there's a lot of aspiring young people that want to do it, and so that and probably underestimate, a number of things that you have to acquire knowledge about and skill at to be able to, to blend in the way you want it to sound. I think it'll be helpful.